What's up, my friends? So today I'll be watching a video that a lot of you end up suggesting. The title goes, Iran attacks ships in the Strait of Hormuz. What the US did next was brutal. How brutal? Well, I guess we shall see. So before I go into that, let me ask you for one thing. If you can leave a like, thank you so much. Is the best way to show support. But if you subscribe, what happens? You make my day. So thank you so much once again if you are doing that. Actually, one more thing, there is an option to hype a video nowadays. Please do it also. Makes the video to go further. And yeah, link for the original video below. Let's go.
Iran just used the one piece of leverage that it has. Control over the Strait of Hormuz has been the Iranian regime's trump card.
Okay, I'm aware of this. This is the biggest problem right now because 20% of the oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz, from what I understand, and have been blocked, right? So I guess America is trying to fix this. Oil prices have been going up quite crazy recently, but I think this is the biggest reason. So this is, again, a big problem.
It's just played that card in devastating fashion. What Iran did was unforgivable. 3 big ships were attacked, but Iran made a massive mistake. The US revenge for Iran's Hormuz hubris was instant and brutal. Let's start with Iran's strikes and come to the revenge later. On March 11th, The Guardian reported that a trio of merchant ships had been struck in and around the Strait of Hormuz.
I think I saw
One of these carriers absorbed the bulk of the strike, as the Thai-registered Mayuri Nari was hit by what has been reported as 2 projectiles of unknown origin. That's a polite way of saying that Iran attacked the bulk carrier in a strike that left the ship in flames soon after it departed from a port in the United Arab Emirates.
Come on, we all know who did this, right?
This strike, which occurred about 11 nautical miles north of Oman, signaled an end to a 4-day lull in Iran's attacks against commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. The Mayuri Nari's crew were forced to evacuate their ship in the wake of the attack. So far, it looks like there were no casualties. The Guardian reports that 20 crew members were evacuated immediately by the Omani Navy, with 3 more staying behind to serve as a skeleton crew on the stricken ship as they awaited a later rescue. That attack seemed to spark a small spate of follow-ups as more unknown projectiles struck ships in and around the strait. The Japanese container ship One Majesty was hit with a projectile as it sailed about 45 kilometers or 28 miles northwest of Ras Al Khaimah, which is in the United Arab Emirates. This attack was far less.
Sorry, but I also saw in the news, I don't know if this is totally true or not, but I saw in the news that, because sometimes the news, they specific at war, there is a lot of misinformation going on. But I saw that Iran let China and the India, using the Strait of Hormuz to get some type of energy, oil, I'm going to assume. So they kind of they are allies at the end of the day, right, with a lot of countries. And I think right now the biggest problem goes for America, for Europe, for countries that that are not friends with Iran, I would say.
Northwest of Ras Al Khaimah, which is in the United Arab Emirates. This attack was far less damaging than the one against the Mayuri Nari, as the Japanese vessel sustained only minor damage above the waterline. Still, it's a clear signal of intent from Iran that it's going to follow through on its threats to attack any commercial vessel that attempts to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Another bulk carrier, the Star Gwyneth, flying under the flag of the Marshall Islands, was also struck about 50 kilometers or 30 miles northwest of Dubai. Damage was caused to the hull in the ship's hold area while it was at anchor, but no injuries were reported. This is Iran's wartime strategy. It's the only one that the country has because the Strait of Hormuz provides Iran with the sole piece of leverage that it has in its war with the US and Israel. These 3 attacks add to at least 11 more that have occurred in the Strait of Hormuz or nearby regions since the war began, Reuters reports, and Iran has made it very clear what its goal is with these strikes. Get ready for oil to be $200 a barrel because the oil price depends on regional security, which you have destabilized. Bled Ibrahim.
Okay, I also saw this. Actually, I would love to know your opinion. You guys think that oil can go to $200 a barrel? Right now, I believe it's around 100, so it means it will double. But even 100 is kind of crazy right now, from what I understand. Here in my country, but again, I think this is everywhere, so it's not just my country. But yeah, the gas prices are up quite a lot, actually. And there is a lot of fear because of that. Apart from all of this, my country and most countries in Europe don't have oil, so we don't buy from Russia anymore. So this is a big problem. I think America is a bit more protected since you guys have oil, and also now the situation with Venezuela. But Europe can be the continent that suffers the most, I would say.
Al-Fakari, who is a spokesperson for what is left of the Iranian military command. Indeed, the price of a barrel of oil had previously shot up to $120, though it stabilized to somewhere in the $90 range with hopes that the Iran war could end sometime soon. That end may not come as soon as many would like. We'll get into why later. Iran may have another motivation for attacking these civilian tankers, as Max Afterburner points out in his assessment of what just happened in the Strait. This screams Iranian IRGC payback, Afterburner declares when speaking about the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which essentially acts as a second military for Iran's regime. And the reason that revenge is being meted out is for the non-stop pounding that they've been getting from the US military. That may be the case. But really, this is all about Iran leaning more
I mean, sorry, but the destruction that America did in Iran is kind of crazy in such short period of time. I think this is basically the only weapon they have is the Strait of Hormuz, because if somehow America and Israel can open the Strait of Hormuz for the oil to go to different places, I think the war is basically done. I mean, what can they do? You know, I actually lost focus on the camera. Sorry for that. But yeah, I think this is basically the only thing that America should focus right now is to open this, because I don't think Iran have anything like anything more. You know what I mean?
getting from the US military. That may be the case. But really, this is all about Iran leaning more heavily into the one thing that it might be able to use to convince the US and Israel to end their massive bombing campaigns on the Iranian mainland. As Bloomberg notes, Iran's strategy in the Strait of Hormuz is intended to lead to one of two scenarios, both of which benefit the remnants of the Iranian regime. Of the two, the ideal scenario, perhaps for the US as much as Iran, is that these strikes will lead to peace negotiations prompted by the US wanting to avoid pressure.
Sorry, but how many B-2 bombers do you guys have? Jesus, and is one of my favorite planes ever. It's so beautiful, my friends. I know it's very expensive, but this one is scary but beautiful at the same time.
That comes with essentially closing a waterway that around 20% of the world's seaborne oil passes through each year. The other scenario is that the chaos continues, leading to the price rises that Iran claims will happen as commercial ships avoid the strait entirely and have to take far longer and costlier routes to their destinations. This is what we mean when we call the Strait of Hormuz Iran's only piece of leverage.
Yeah.
Forbes goes a step further in a March 9th article that was published just a couple of days before the three attacks, calling Iran's strategy in the Strait of Hormuz the country's real nuclear option. The US doesn't have to worry about a nuclear weapons program that hasn't reached maturity, Forbes argues. The real...
I totally agree with this, my friends, but it surprises me, but maybe I'm speaking too soon, to be fair. Surprises me that Israel and America didn't have a plan for this, because the Strait of Hormuz right now is closed, right, my friends? But again, it's the only thing they have left. Apart from that, Iran is done. But this is a big thing. So I would expect America to have I would expect the United States to have any type of plan, you know. But seems they are struggling a bit to open the Strait of Hormuz. Well, I guess we shall see what happens in the next couple of days, couple of weeks. But yeah.
Concern, and the one that Iran is trying to create right now, is that Iran pulls the strategic lever on the Strait of Hormuz by making it impassable for an extended period of time. Iran might even be able to follow through. At its narrowest point, the Strait of Hormuz is about 21 miles wide. That may sound spacious, but tanker traffic does not spread across the entire waterway, Forbes says. It adds that shipping traffic through the strait doesn't have free rein to sail wherever it wants. The Strait of Hormuz is divided roughly into shipping lanes, one in and one out, that are each about 2 miles wide and separated by a 2-mile buffer zone. That takes what is already a small 21-mile choke point and narrows it down to just 6 miles that Iran's fast boats can patrol and its drones can strike. The March 11th trio of strikes proves that Iran can indeed cause major problems in the Strait of Hormuz. But the US has a little something to say about that. Iran's attacks on commercial ships couldn't go unanswered, and the revenge that the US unleashed was fast, furious, and sent a brutal message to Iran's military command that it will be hit hard every time it tries to pull its nonsense in the Strait of Hormuz. US President Donald Trump warned that this revenge was coming. On March 10th, he took to Truth Social to tell Iran's regime that it will be wise not to try to turn the Strait of Hormuz into a death trap for commercial vehicles. Trump focused on Iran's second strategy of laying mines as he declared, "If Iran has put out any mines in the Hormuz Strait and we have no reports of them doing so, we want them removed immediately. If for any reason mines were placed and they were not removed forthwith, the military consequences to Iran will be at a level never seen before." Trump even dangled.
So, sorry, but Truth Social is another social media that is popular in America, I'm assuming.
The carrot on the end of the stick by telling Iran's regime that it will be a giant step in the right direction if Iran pulls back on mines and stops striking ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran didn't listen. And its defiance cost the country in a major way. But before we go deeper into that, this is a quick reminder that you are watching The Military Show. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time to hit that
Good for
button.
me also, my friends.
So
And
despite
for
the
them.
warning, Iran struck anyway. It may not have taken out any commercial vessels with mines, but it did use projectiles, likely aerial drones such as Shahids, to attack commercial shipping. And true to Trump's words, the US meted out a punishment that left Iran's military regime reeling. How? Well, the US destroyed 16 of Iran's mine-laying ships, along with several other naval vessels, in a devastating series of attacks. That news was confirmed by US Central Command on March 11th, with the first 10 being reported on by Trump himself a mere 13 minutes after he delivered his initial March 10th
Damn, this is crazy. This is real footage.
warning to Iran. I'm pleased to report that within the last few hours, we have hit and completely destroyed 10 inactive mine-laying boats and/or ships, with more to follow, Trump said. We told you that the revenge was instant. We're assuming that as soon as the US received word about the first of the 3 strikes we've discussed, the finger that was already on the trigger was pulled. Iran will be feeling that pain as its plan to use mines to control the Strait of Hormuz has fallen apart in a heartbeat. The inactive vessels that Trump mentioned were likely to soon become active. Now they're gone.
Okay, I go back because I lost focus and I'm going to explain why I lost focus. My friends, look at the amount of money on this aircraft carrier.
As soon as the US
I know the aircraft carrier by itself is kinda expensive, but look at the amount of jets here.
received word about the first of the 3 strikes we've discussed, the finger that was
Holy
already on the
sweet
trigger
potato.
was pulled. Iran will be feeling that pain as its plan to use mines to control the Strait of Hormuz has fallen apart in a heartbeat.
Oh, sorry, but I didn't know you can have so many of them. I'm actually kind of surprised by this. Damn. Oh, that's why aircraft carriers are so important.
The inactive vessels that Trump mentioned were likely to soon become active. Now they're gone, along with 6 more since Trump made his announcement. And if Iran thought that this was the worst of it all, then it had another thing coming. The US
What?
hit much harder than taking out some mine layers. Entire classes of Iranian warships have been taken out in response to Iran's actions in the Strait of Hormuz.
I
That's
was
according
aware
to
of
after
this, that they end up destroying all the mine stuff. I'm losing focus and I don't know why. Sorry.
Burner, who provides a roundup of the devastation caused to Iran's navy. He shares footage from US Central Command that reveals that March 10th saw the US launch sweeping strike waves against the country on an almost hourly basis, all in different locations and directions in Iran. Among the casualties of these massive and sweeping revenge strikes were the last 4 of the Shahid Soleimani-class corvettes that Iran had in its fleet, which means an entire class of warships has been wiped off the map. The
That's
US is
crazy.
aiming to be unpredictable, dynamic, and decisive with these strikes. And
No, I mean, sorry, my friends. I was watching a video offline. Yes, I also watch videos offline about this type of stuff that I don't react to. And the destruction is so insane at this point. I mean, I feel like a lot of media are not reporting on this. There is media that is for some reason, maybe the Strait of Hormuz is something that scares a lot of people, but we should report how crazy successful America has been so far. I know there was some people died, and that's of course tragic. But overall, I mean, this is war, and America is doing a great job here, from what I understand. No Navy anymore, no Air Force anymore. I mean, I'm telling you, my friends, honestly, America is just flexing at this point.
it's working. Iran has no answers. At least the bulk of its warships aren't able to defend themselves against America's superior firepower. And though Iran will be reeling from the US revenge strikes, it does still have options in the Strait of Hormuz that it's going to try to use. Stick with us because we'll be revealing what those options are in just a few minutes.
Okay.
But before we do, it's worth exploring the sheer scale of the US strikes since the war began. After the dust had settled
Oh boy, let's see it.
on America's brutal retaliation for Iran's Strait of Hormuz attacks, the numbers
All right. See, every time I laugh watching this type of videos, people get mad at me. So I'm sorry if that offends you. I know at the end of the day, this is tragic. I think the regime in Iran is disgusting. So I kind of support America doing this, to be honest with you. They end up killing so many innocent people there, the regime. So look, just do a bit of research and you will understand why this is happening. But of course, war is always bad at the end of the day. So what I wish is, that people become free. America also stops doing this because it's not necessary anymore. And we live in a world that is quite more pacific. But so far, seems like America is doing a great job. Let's see how it ends.
dust had settled on America's brutal retaliation for Iran's Strait of Hormuz attacks, the numbers started rolling in. The US now claims to have struck over 5,500 targets since it began Operation Epic Fury in late February, with more than 60 of those targets being Iranian warships. A little clarification is needed here. When the US says it hit more than 5,500 targets, that doesn't mean it rattled off 5,500 bombs and missiles.
Okay.
The amount of munitions used will be even higher, especially when it comes to Iran's hardened targets such as underground bunkers, which need to be hit several times over before they're taken out of the picture. What we're seeing here is an overwhelming amount of precision strikes being carried out by the US, and hundreds of these strikes were added to the list after Iran's regime failed to heed Trump's warning about the Strait of Hormuz.
I'm so sorry, my friend, but I had to stop the video. I was looking at my statistics on YouTube, and guess what? Most of my viewers are not subscribers. How the hell is that possible? Please consider to do it if you are one of those. That said, we are not done. Another thing, if you can follow me on social media, links below, that would mean the world to me. You make my day, as you are aware. There is also a Patreon link below, and you may find some country music reactions. Take a look. You can join for free, actually. That said, let's continue with this.
Strikes were added to the list after Iran's regime failed to heed Trump's warning about the Strait of Hormuz. Losing its mine-laying ships was already bad enough for Iran, but to have the US hitting it all over, practically on the hour, every hour, has shown Iran's regime that for every commercial ship that it manages to damage with a drone, the US will utterly destroy key military nodes, vessels, and anything else that its missiles and bombs can target inside Iran. And by anything else, we literally mean that the US can pick and choose its targets because Iran isn't able to stop any of this. The one thing that the US has to be wary of is that 5,500 targets struck and far more munitions than that used isn't sustainable over the long term. Preston Stewart raises this point in his analysis of Iran's Strait of Hormuz strikes and the immense retaliation that came from the US. He notes that 5,500 targets struck would average out to about 500 targets per day, and that could be a problem in the long term. These cannot all be done with standoff munitions, Stewart says when talking about maintaining a 500 per day strike rate. He adds, "We have a lot of Tomahawks, we do have a lot of ATACMS, we do have a lot of long-range cruise missiles. We do not have enough to be carrying out 500 attacks a day, every day for the foreseeable future." The odds are that the US is switching toward using guided bombs in its campaign of aerial devastation against Iran, which is how it's going to sustain what we're seeing right now in Iran for as long as is needed to achieve the goal of forcing Iran to give up its leverage in the Strait of Hormuz. That sustainment is going to be needed. Even though the US has made Iran pay for what it did to the 3 commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz, it would be foolish to believe that the fighting over this waterway is all over. The strait is just too important, as we mentioned earlier when telling you about Iran's strategy of forcing the price of oil up to $200 per barrel. There is a real threat here, as the Strauss Center for International Security and Law points out.
But you know what? It's kind of crazy that I believe the number is 20 or 30% of the oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz, and that's a big number. I'm aware of this, and I don't think it's just oil. There is other type of energies, from what I understand, also. But the price doubling makes not a lot of sense at the same time. I understand this is not 1 + 1. But I don't know, I feel like maybe there is a bit of speculation here when it comes to oil prices.
About 17 million barrels transit through this one strait every single day, accounting for about 20 to 30% of the entire world's oil consumption. The Gulf region in particular relies on the Strait of Hormuz because pipeline options are limited. All told, 88% of the oil that leaves the Persian Gulf goes by the way of the Strait of Hormuz, so Iran isn't going to be giving up its ability to control passage through the strait without a real fight. America's challenge is that this fight isn't going to be coming from Iran's large warships, or even the mine-laying vessels that the US destroyed. Instead, Iran is going to be leaning on the other option it has, which we touched on a moment ago, fast attack boats. Even as its warships sink and its mine-laying strategy gets sent the way of the dodo, Iran still has a lot of fast attack boats that it can use to zip toward a target, launch a drone or rocket, and then get out of dodge before anybody can do anything about them. Afterburner highlights this, noting that these fast boats don't even have to be crewed in some cases. Iran has access to small and rapid vessels that it can pack with explosives and control remotely, somewhat similar.
Damn. You know what? Honestly, that's impressive. So it's kind of like a drone, but it's a boat. Oh wow! Well, my friends, I was not aware at all of this. Actually, this seems difficult to deal for sure.
To the seaborne drones that Ukraine has used to such devastating effect against Russia's warships in the.
Damn, I didn't know about this. That's crazy, actually. Oh, this is a bit of a problem.
Iran has access to small and rapid vessels that it can pack with explosives and control remotely, somewhat similar to the seaborne drones that Ukraine has used to such devastating effect against Russia's warships in the Black Sea.
Okay.
That's the big worry for the US right now as it shifts into a new phase of its Strait of Hormuz strategy after taking out the mine layers. And these fast boats are having an impact. Even though the US followed through on Trump's threats of retaliation, it still hasn't been able to reopen the Strait of Hormuz for commercial shipping. At least not anything like the volume of shipping that would indicate that commercial vessel owners believe that they will be able to move their ships through without the possibility of them being struck. And on March 12th, a pair of ships, namely the Cephasi Vishnu and the Zafira Swiri, both flying under the flag of the Marshall Islands, were struck in attacks that make the three we covered earlier pale in comparison. Both were hit at about 1:30 a.m. local time off the coast of Iraq, again by unknown projectiles, and both burst into flames. Authorities managed to rescue 38 crew members, though sadly one person died, per Iraqi news outlets.
Wait, the thing is, do you guys think this can be other countries helping them? Maybe I'm going too deep into a conspiracy theory right now, but of course I assume it comes from Iran. But who knows? Like I said, I mean, they have friends in that region.
These fast boats are an ever-present threat in the Strait of Hormuz. The question now is, how is the US going to be able to handle them from here on out? Maintaining its rate of attacks on the Iranian mainland using guided bombs, as Stuart suggested the US is doing, will play a large role. This is a pressure versus pressure game, and the US can deliver a lot more pressure than Iran.
Oh, yeah.
However, the US also has a duty to keep the ships that want to transit the Strait of Hormuz safe. Afterburner suggests that this could be achieved through the deployment of fighter jets that are no longer needed in Iran itself now that the campaign has switched to aerial bombing.
But even if it becomes safe, I believe this will take some time because there will be a lot of delays and stuff like that, and there will be people that are, I'm going to assume, kind of afraid, at least at the start, because, it's safe. Are you sure? You know what I mean? I don't want to die.
To control the Strait of Hormuz, you've got to have fighters up and airborne, just like this. Afterburner says of images of fighter jets just being released by US Central Command. He adds, F-22s, F-18s, F-35, F-16s. Have as many of those up there as possible. He references footage of an F-16 destroying Shahid drones in Dubai as an example of why this would work. Presumably the plan would be to maintain constant sorties over the Strait of Hormuz, perhaps with some tankers being accompanied by fighter jets, so that anything that attempts to attack by air or sea will be taken out before it manages to strike.
Okay. This seems crazy expensive for America, and I'm going to say something that does not even play on my own benefit, but I have to say it. Why other countries are not helping America here? Because again, gas prices are going crazy in Europe. I think this needs to be... I would never let America do this alone. I think they need help. You guys need help. And I think it's more than fair because America also have been supporting Europe multiple times. The military budget, America always end up putting more money than they actually should into NATO. So I think this is fair. Am I crazy?
Solution. A costly one, given that America's jets and the weapons they fire are more expensive than the drones that Iran is using. However, the US may get some support in this endeavor very soon, as the time...
Specific because America have oil. you know, so again, if this really goes crazy, I don't think America will even be the country that is punished the worst. You know what I mean?
Reported, France has announced plans to deploy an unprecedented fleet of warships to the Strait of Hormuz,
All right. All right. Okay. Never mind.
as well as the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea.
Wait. Did I understand that correct? Because now says unlikely. What?
Soon, as the Times reported, France has announced plans to deploy an unprecedented fleet of warships to the Strait of Hormuz.
Okay, France. You know what? Kind of surprised by that. UK now unlikely to send aircraft carriers as French fleet. Oh man, the UK. See, my friends, there is a reason Washington was the best president ever, because they end up kicking British as really bad back in the day. And it's kind of crazy because UK and America should be kind of like, I feel like they should be kind of brothers, you know what I mean? It's kind of crazy to see them, I don't know.
As well as the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. According to President Emmanuel Macron, this force will include a pair of helicopter carriers, 8 frigates, and the Charles de Gaulle, which is France's flagship aircraft carrier. Those vessels are going to be working alongside those provided by other allies, likely including the US, to reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
So, friends, I just want to say this because it makes me very proud. And this way I know if you end up watching until the end. Portugal, leave me the number 7 if you knew this. Portugal said that we are supporting the United States. Yeah. Spain, no support for the United States. And now you guys understand why I talk so much crap about Spain. I'm just saying. Just conquer Spain after this. Give it to us and we make things. You know, just never is bad joke. Okay. All right. Actually, I thought about another joke. Well, this is for the ones that watch until the end. Let's laugh again. What always bad. There is no Walmarts in Iran. Are you guys aware of that? No Walmart. Only Target. Oh, sorry.
Maybe the US doesn't have to do it all alone.
Someone ended up saying that in the comments. Sorry. And I thought it was funny.
With France helping out, the protection offered
No Walmart, Target. You guys understand the joke, right?
to ships sailing through the Strait of Hormuz is magnified enormously. Escorts become possible. Warships can sail alongside commercial vessels, utilizing electronic warfare and their vast array of weaponry to take out Iran's fast boats and other projectiles. It may not be the perfect solution, but what this does is strip away the bulk of the last bit of leverage that Iran has against the US and the rest of the world. If Iran's plan is to make oil cost $200 per barrel, the allies arriving in the Strait of Hormuz is the counterplan. And as more of the French ships arrive, the US can continue its focus on applying pressure to the Iranian regime with its aerial campaign on the mainland. That pressure may just be enough to cause Iran's regime to collapse, which will have a ripple effect all over the world. One man who'll feel the impact, perhaps more than anybody outside of Iran itself, is Vladimir Putin. The collapse of Iran's regime puts an end to Putin's Middle East ambitions, and you can find out why if you watch our video. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you're subscribed to the military.
No, I mean, that's something massive just to enter the Mediterranean. US big surprise for, I'm going to assume Iran. Well, leave a like if you end up enjoying this video and I might watch that one also. So, my friends, thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys spending this time with me. Like I said, and now being serious, of course, this is a tragic situation. I hope the war ends as soon as possible. I also hope that Iran can become a free country again. And yeah, thank you so much. See you guys in the next one. Bye.